Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.
I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
equity, and the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
The suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
This is What's Next on WBFO. I'm your host, Jillian Hanesworth, and joining me today is Phylicia Brown and Jerome Wright. Phylicia Brown is the executive director of Black Love Resists in the Rust and the director of No New Jail. Jerome Wright has so many titles. Jerome does a lot, but he is the co-director of the HALT Solitary confinement campaign. Jerome, Phylicia, how y'all doing?
Hi, glad to be here.
Blessed this
yes,
morning.
Happy to have you here. So, if you're listening, you may have seen billboards around the county. Some of them say things like healing happens in community, not jail. That is what we're here to talk about today. So Jerome and Phylicia have both been working on the No New Jail campaign. So let's just start off with talking about what the campaign was and where does it stand today?
Yeah, so the No New Jail campaign essentially was built by folks who had been working on issues of the Erie County jails for a number of years. And in 2023, when Mark Poloncarz announced that he was going to begin the process of building a new jail in Erie County and set aside $2.5 million for that. We kind of came together for all of the fights that we had been fighting and just made a conscious effort to block this process of building a new jail in Erie County, which we knew would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And the first thing we were able to do was get the county to commit to doing a needs assessment and feasibility study. And the county ledge actually voted to use $750,000 of that $2.5 million that the county executive had allocated for that process and set the rest of the money aside. And so from that point on, we continued to do work and build our campaign to really move the county to think critically about the idea of building a new jail when we have not addressed the needs of the county when it comes to things like mental health, youth services, housing, right? And all of the things that we know we need in community to truly be safe.
Yeah.
Well, and to build upon that, we haven't addressed the needs of the two jails that we have here now. We have lawsuit after lawsuit. We have reports nationally about how bad the jail is, how bad it was run. And to me, putting a new face in the sheriff's office was like what they want to do with the jail. Put a new jail there and the same things happen because under the new sheriff, there hasn't been no change in the issues that happen there, medical malpractice, abuse, even, and let me make this clear because this is one of the misconceptions.
Yeah.
Some people want to pose this as Blur or me and Phylicia and the people in that activist community against the jail, against law enforcement. That is patently false.
Yeah.
We all have family, friends that work in these facilities. We want them to be safe as well as we want the people who reside in those facilities to be safe. They're not safe now. Those officers are now doing 16-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Do you know what type of volatility that causes when you're angry because you can't go to your son's wedding because you're stuck in the facility, and then you go on a unit where guys are already angry because they were locked up illegally or whatever the case? You're talking about a powder keg. Yeah. And they haven't addressed that. And you want to build a shiny new facility like that's going to be the cure-all. And we know that that's not true. And the community that wants money sent to the community where it's needed most. We agree. Changes have to happen to those facilities. That is without a doubt. Anybody else saying anything is not talking on our behalf. We want our people in there, staff, and every incarcerated individuals to have a better environment than the ones that they presently have.
That's right.
But not a new jail, and not at the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars that this community really needs.
Yeah. And that's a lot of money, especially when you consider the budgetary gaps that we're already facing in Buffalo and in Erie County. Like, we're already having a really hard time paying the bills and keeping the lights on. So to imagine that amount of money to go towards building a new jail, that has to feel like a slap in the face, especially when it comes to like the work that both of you do already in the community. What was your initial like reaction when you heard this announcement? Like,
I don't think I can say it on the radio.
I mean, all of us were up in arms, right?
Yes.
And you begin the process. You know how this works, right? You begin the process of making a bunch of phone calls and can you believe and why would he say that? And no one consulted the community. I think that's the biggest part of all of this, right? Like, this came down from the county executive. We spoke to some legislators early on who said that they weren't even consulted about it, right? And so no one's being consulted about this thing that's going to happen in the community, and that's going to have big impacts on the way that our community is. Yes, about the money, but also about the people who are incarcerated, right? And the people who will be incarcerated. When we're talking about almost doubling or tripling the amount of people that can be held in our facilities in the county, we have to really question who's going to be in those facilities. Right. Right?
No, we don't have to question.
Right.
We know.
And so all of this was happening in a vacuum, right? Where no one was really being consulted about it. No, everything was secret and all of that. And so, yeah, it started off with a bunch of folks being angry and kind of just like, we have to do something about this. Like, we cannot sit by and allow this to happen.
Yeah.
This reminded me of the stadium deal.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Humboldt deal, that these people go around making decisions for our community without even giving us the respect of coming to the community and saying, this is what we would like to do. Not we're going to do, we would like to do. What are your feelings? No, this is what we're going to do. We don't care how you feel. In the case of the No New Jail, they felt us.
Yeah. So how did you make them feel you? Like, what was the process like?
The billboard, let me tell you something, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to Phylicia here as the campaign coordinator. She ran a wonderful campaign, and those billboards, I think, woke people up who, we already had troops on the ground. Our community doesn't want this. We had forum after forum where hundreds of people. I've seen the Jefferson packed by this issue more than I've seen it by anything else.
Yeah.
We had many meetings. We met with all the community, and everybody said, for that type of money, no. No, but we all agree something needs to be done about those facilities.
That's right.
But not what they wanted to do. And they, like I said, didn't have the decency to come to the community and say, this is what we're proposing. This is what they didn't have the decency to go to some of the legislators who we elected as leaders of our community and tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to answer your question too, right? Like, we really built a grassroots effort. We knocked doors like it was the only thing we could do, right? For a very long time. And we had young people. We were able to build an intergenerational campaign that was also like multicultural, right? And all of these things. And we were able to pull in so many different people who felt impacted by the issue for whatever reason. And we knocked a lot of doors. We held forums. We talked to community members. We had strategy meetings. We put up the billboards. And we really like engaged people in being part of a campaign where their voice was actually being heard, and also their leadership was being built, right? We did press conferences. We went to the ledge.
That's right,
and we had a multifaceted campaign too. There were some folks who were like, look, I want to just do research and I don't want to do any of that door knocking and all of that stuff. And so they really held down the research and put in FOIL requests and, really taking the county to task about this issue.
Yeah. And just for my own, nosiness, were these FOIA requests ever responded to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, period. Love to hear that. Okay, just making sure.
But don't be overconfident by that. I think this campaign has some real mojo going with it that may have gotten that, but because I know what you're getting at.
They
getting anything from them. The people who want everything from you, getting something from them is a task.
Impossible.
Yes.
It feels impossible. Yeah. Okay, so today, is Erie County building a new jail?
They have said that they are not going to spend what turned out to be $800 million.
And where was this
on
money
a new jail?
Well, remember, they told us it was going to be 200, 250.
Yeah.
When we all knew that cost over. See, this, we're going to talk real here.
Yeah.
This is the shell game. Mm-hmm. Developers get to get this money, contractors, and none of this money comes into our community. Yep. They don't hire our community. Mm-hmm. And, this is the problem. This is the biggest part of the problem. You're going to tell us what you're going to do. We ain't going to be engaged. We're not going to benefit. And then you're going to send our people to prison.
Yeah.
That is not the paradigm we're following anymore. This community understands its power and is going to use it to the betterment of the community. They took $850 million, almost $1 billion to make this stadium. Everywhere on the East Coast of this country, the city has the stadium in the middle of the city to provide the vibrancy that it needs. Only here do you have to trek out to Orchard Park.
Yeah.
Why? So those are things. They did that according to the legislature. They shot that bottom without anything, and they got a community benefits agreement out of it, $100 million. Now, let me say, over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Now, I applaud Ms. Baskin for her diligence in getting something, because we wouldn't have got anything had she not done that.
Yeah.
But that is pennies on the dollar. Yeah. Especially when right now they're fighting to get in there to do what they already agreed to do. Yeah. Concessions and construction. It is time that this city change the way it's doing this business. And this No New Jails campaign was one of the times we said we're going to change the paradigm.
Yeah. So I definitely want to talk about, ideally where the money would go that was going to be used to build the new jail. But first, I want to talk a little bit about, we have a really bad habit, especially in this country, of trying to paint over broken walls, right? Yeah. Like there are cracks in the wall, and we just put a couple layers of paint, and you might be able to see the crack a little bit, but hopefully you won't notice because now everything's white, right? So let's talk about the issues, and you alluded to it a little bit before, but let's talk a little bit more about what's actually happening right now in Erie County in the existing facility that we have. Yes. I want to talk a little bit more about that.
You're talking to the right guy.
I know I am.
Not just by my name. I have resided in that facility as an incarcerated individual. I've worked in that facility as a civilian employee running programming. There are so many issues, and I alluded to the first one is that the staff is being worked. Mess. They almost doing slave work right about now, and I no pun intended. Yeah. When you're forcing people to work overtime, and you know what the real question is? Why do you have people working overtime when you don't have a fully staffed facility to begin with? Right. Both of those facilities are not even close to half filled. So why are you having staffing problems? Really, I mean that's like an Elijah's question. If you have all of these staff, why are they being held shifts if there is not an increase in the population? Yeah. Well, that's a question, but working in it, there's no programming for anybody. Religious services are not coming in. Education is not given. Recreation is not given. They have a fully functioning gym that those guys never see. Never see. I never saw the entire time I was there. Fully with everything in it. and they only go to this little yard to walk around. So you got people down there, they had an 81% recidivism rate. You know what that means? 8 out of 10 people who leave there come back. You tell me any business in the world that could flourish over that type of recall, setting out a defective product that's going to come back. Any company in the world wouldn't work. Why corrections? It does. You got generations of families coming up through there, working and being incarcerated because we're not addressing the root causes.
That's right.
That's the painted over the cracks.
Yeah.
When are we gonna get what we're talking about doing with that money is addressing the root causes.
Yeah.
When you can tell me that 57% of your facility have diagnosed mental health issues, so let me tell you, 57, right? I'm gonna say 13 to 15% more higher because you got people undiagnosed, refused diagnosis.
Yep.
So you're talking about almost 2/3 of the facility with mental health issues. That's not a mental health facility.
Right.
Punishment and mental health is not treatment.
Nope.
So why we don't have more beds for mental health people than we got jail cells?
Right.
When you're telling me almost 20-30% of the population suffering from alcohol and substance abuse, they need treatment, not jail. So almost 90% of your population could be serviced somewhere in the community better, giving jobs to people in the community, keeping them at home, and all of that. But we want to build a jail.
Just lock everybody up.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, especially this piece around treatment, what was being said about the new jail eventually, right? Because we were given all the pushback, and they were like, well, we want to have a treatment facility, and we want to have programs, and we're going to make a cafeteria that's like a college cafeteria, right? And all of these visions for a beautiful new facility. And knowing that most of our folks in Erie County are who are in the jails have mental health needs, you cannot get no mental health treatment in a jail cell.
Yeah.
It is antithetical to mental health.
And
being locked up, period.
Right. And the way that our jails are, jails are pre-trial facilities and all of those kinds of things. Yep. People are not even in the jails long enough to get any kind of substantial treatment. Yeah. And so to spin this as some sort of state-of-the-art treatment facility for mental health, when we know that we can have more beds in our community if you invested that kind of money in our community, if you invested that kind of money in behavioral health treatment, if you invested that kind of money in other ways to treat mental health, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the fact that we don't have third spaces as people anymore, especially after COVID, right? And these are other ways that address folks' mental health as well, right? If we're not investing in our youth to the same tune that we were willing to build a new facility, right? We actually were able to go, well, we weren't able to go. We showed up at some of the focus groups that the county was having about building the new facility, which we were not invited to. We did not get any information about. We ran into someone who was going and they told us about it, so we showed up.
And we invited them to everything.
Yeah.
That we did.
Of course.
And we got there, and one of the things that even the consultants doing the feasibility study said was that people are ending up in the jails. They need a new jail facility because there is nowhere to put people who need mental health treatment. And we raised, obviously, a lot of questions about that. Like, well, then that doesn't make sense. Right. If the issue is about there's nowhere for people who need mental health treatment to go, then why are we not building a mental health facility?
Right. Right.
Duh.
It makes too much sense.
No, it is double speak.
Yeah.
You're saying one thing, but you really got a different plan because they know that they're not equipped. Those officers are not trained or equipped to do the type of treatment. They don't come into the profession to do that type of treatment.
Nope.
And that whole thing about what type of facility they were going to build, this shiny new thing, they went to some county in Connecticut, and the facility, I wish we had that here. But we're not. because the guy who runs that is committed. He's a social worker. He's not a law enforcement person. He has a totally different perspective and mentality. Yeah. His staff have to go and do things in the community. They can't just work in the jail. They got to go to basketball games and not just do security. They got to do stuff that he's not prepared to do. Yeah. So you're going to do a model based on the building, but not on the culture.
Right.
Nah, we're not going for that. That's not what's happening. And again, why are we not putting money where it's needed? Jefferson Avenue looks worse today than it did on 514.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Why are we putting money and having stores over there, revitalizing that area? We don't even have a decent and honorable memorial to those 10 lives yet. But you got money to build a brand new jail, but you can't build a memorial against racism and hatred. Yeah. And for our beloved community members. That tells you what they care about our community, but we care. Right. And that's why we raised that campaign. And we want to know where that other money is that was allocated for the 2.5 was left on that. I'm not good at math, so I'm going to have to leave it to her to handle that. 1.75. She got it. Where's that money? Mm-hmm. Because we got a community responder model that is underfunded, that needs to be funded at the tune of what they have left, so that we can stop people from going in jail who have mental health issues and get them to do whatever treatment we can get them to out here now.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to invite our county executive up to talk about where this money is. I think all in all, and it's not going to be a shocker for anybody listening, but our jail system, our prison system in this city, in this country, in this county is very inhumane. I remember I used to work in the homeless unit in DSS. And one day I was coming out, everybody got sent home early because the weather got so bad. Mm-hmm. And at that time I was taking the bus because it was one quick bus ride, and parking downtown is no joke. Mm-hmm. So I got on the bus and this lady yelled for the bus to wait, and you could barely see because of the snow. She ran on the bus. She had on shorts, flip-flops, and a T-shirt. And she had just gotten released. Yes. And it's just so, I will never forget that. Everybody started taking their hats and gloves off and giving them to her because it was freezing. And if she were to walk into a CVS and take a pair of socks because her feet are literally freezing off, she would have ended up right back in there.
Let me tell you that is so apropos for this discussion. That problem happens in this county jail right now. Yeah. People are released right now with they go in the summertime. The only thing they get when they come out is what they came in. Yeah. Shorts, no socks, flip-flops, whatever. They have no concern about making sure that there's proper clothing available for anybody who leaves. Yeah. But they want a new jail. You got enough money to build a new jail, but you can't clothe the people who leave in the present facility so that they don't commit another crime or die from the elements.
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes it feels like maybe we're not asking for too much. Like, we are not asking for too much, but we're asking people who don't care.
And let's say you said something about the jails are not humane. They were never meant to be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Let's stop pretending like the system is broken.
Right.
It's working the way it was intended to work.
That's right. Yep.
We got to break it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's breaking is allowing them to build new jails. That's number one. Mm-hmm. The second part is to demand that instead of using all that money, $100,000 a year to keep somebody in a county jail, if you gave that guy half that money, he wouldn't be in the jail to begin with, but that's another story. But why are we still doing that? Mm-hmm. Why are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, too, something to add is that the county doesn't have $800 million, right? Mm-hmm. No, there isn't. I mean, well, not for a new jail facility, right? There isn't this money just sitting aside somewhere. They were going to do whatever they had to do to get that money, right? And I think that's something that we need to be cognizant of, because when we do go and say, hey, to your point, we're not asking for too much. Mm-hmm. We're asking to be treated as human beings, right? And so when we say, can you fund X? And they say, we don't have the money, right?
All the time.
There's never any money for the things that we ask for. And maybe there is some money, but it's pennies on the dollar to what we actually need, right? It's pennies on the dollar to what could be possible if we had fully funded programs, right? That we're running.
$2.5 million.
Never.
Exactly.
Never.
And so I think that's something that needs to be highlighted too.
Yeah, because we never hear them say, we don't have the funding, but let me see how I can find the funding. It's always just like,
we don't have it.
Thank you for your input. I'll put it in the suggestion box, but we don't have it. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not even going to go look and see.
Right. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
I ain't got it. I ain't got the 5. I ain't paying the 5. So I do want to get into the conversation about where this money could go. Assuming that the county executive still finds a way to get his hands on this money, I definitely want to talk about, in your vision for our county, what would it look like if this money is actually funneled into the community exactly in a way that's beneficial to the people. But first, we do have to jump to a quick break. So we will be right back on What's Next on WBFO.
Hey y'all, Corey here. Compact Civics is now in session. I want to talk about a hot bench issue, whether judges should be appointed or elected. In early U.S. history, all judges were appointed by elected officials. This long-standing tradition has led to some strong arguments for it. Here's an example. Elections might pressure judges to reveal their positions on laws violating ethics. Judges must remain impartial, and what they need to care about is knowing legal codes from front to back. Then there's the other side of the bench. Some judges favor elections because they are seen as more transparent and democratic, avoiding behind-the-scenes deal-making. They can also enhance diversity. For instance, an African-American woman noted she might not have been appointed judge in an environment led predominantly by white men. Research shows that elected judges are more responsive to public opinion and also tend to be more punitive, especially towards minority defendants. However, whether electoral pressures impact judges' behavior remains an open question. In New York, there's a hybrid approach. Judges are chosen through partisan elections, allowing candidates to run under multiple party designations. So, New York's model kind of offers an interesting middle ground. More choice, more voice.
Special thanks to our partners, the Buffalo Presidential Center, whose mission is to explore and share stories about Buffalo and Western New York's contributions to the U.S. presidency and national affairs.
This is Jack Cruiser with the Scoreboard on WBFO. Listen during Morning Edition and All Things Considered each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the latest on pro matchups and college rivalries, as well as standout local athletes from Western New York and Southern Ontario. Want more? Listen to a longer version of the Scoreboard at WBFO.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
We're back on What's Next on WBFO. This is Jillian Hanesworth, your host, and I'm joined by Phylicia Brown and Jerome Wright. So we're talking about the No New Jail campaign. So before the break, we started to talk a little bit about budgeting. So we know that there's this magical money that was going to come into the county to build this jail. That's not going to happen now. There's no new jail that's going to be built. But if the county was already working to procure this funding, right? Hopefully they'll still keep working to bring more money into the county. Ideally, they will keep trying to fund our county. But in your vision, if you could paint a picture for me of what Erie County would look like if this money actually came into the county and was allocated to the needs of the people, what would you want to see happen?
I want you to start with, because I don't want anybody to get the misconception that we decided what's, what the people want. That we thoroughly researched. We did surveys. We did town halls. We did budget hearings. We did budget. What do we call
town
it?
halls. People's budget town
People's
halls.
budget town, where community members came in and got a chance to, and she's going to explain that to you. So I just want to make it clear that people talking about, well, who's the campaign to decide? The campaign didn't decide. Unlike they did, we let the community decide.
Yeah. So we did this. We had this vision of a people's budget process, which if folks are familiar with participatory budgeting, this was done in the spirit of participatory budgeting. Okay. An ideal participatory budget, you actually have the dollars to be able to spend on the things that the community wants to spend them on. But we essentially took the Erie County budget, which is $2 billion roughly, and we hosted a town hall with folks. Well, let me back up. We had a little bit of a process. We started out with a teach-in about the jails. We did many of those throughout the campaign because we felt like in order for us to be talking about this issue in a real way, people got to know what the issue is, right? And so we did a teach-in about the jails. The next step was a teach-in about the budget. And so folks from the research team and other folks who were on the campaign really put together this Erie County budget teach-in. And we looked at where the money currently goes in the county. What is the budget process, right? All of those things. We moved folks from that budget teach-in into what we called the People's Budget Town Hall, the first one we had. Okay. And that was a place where essentially folks came. We had 10 facilitators set up at different tables. And when people walked in the room, eventually they were able to choose a table of interest, right? Mm-hmm. And these things were about youth, housing, mental health, community organizations, right? Like our community organizations need funding, substance use harm reduction, right? All of these different things. And the facilitators guided folks to create proposals about what the county could do with the money, right? And how much money do they think that their proposal needed and all of these things. At that point, folks were able to then get up and present their proposal to the whole room. We had about 100 people in the room. Folks got up and were able to present their proposal, each table, one by one, talk about their issue, why it was important, why it needed funding. And then everyone had a stack of dollars, right, that ideally added up to the $2 billion. And then they went around the room and gave money to each of these proposals, which then turned into the people's budget, right? And so we took this people's budget, and the second town hall we did was focused on messaging because we knew the actual budget hearing was coming up. And so we said, all right, we know what the numbers are. We know people want mental health funded in this county. We need housing, right? And the amounts of money that folks were allocating to these things were in the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And we were doing all of that. We took everybody in this second town hall and essentially broke up in the same groups and said, now let's create the messaging for when we go to the county and tell them this is what we want. And so that was the second town hall. And then right after that was the actual county budget hearing. And folks went to that budget hearing prepared, right? Knowing what the people's budget was, knowing what the messaging was. And so I guess to answer your question more directly, what always floats to the top in any conversation I've ever had about money, whether it be in the county, in the city, in the state for Buffalo, what always floats to the top are young people, housing, mental health, and living wage jobs. It's always those four things that float to the top.
Yeah, and those are the things that our community desperately need more than something like a new jail or a new stadium or any of those other things that they seem to have the money to build. You know, new museums and all this entertainment. And, you know, I understand this is a tourist bringing money, but no, our communities need some of that money. Again, I'm going to go back to Jefferson Avenue. The eyes of the world were on Buffalo, and we blinked. We didn't even get another supermarket out of that. And so right now, any fool, coward racist in America or the world could do the exact same thing that happened on 5/14. Go to Tops on Jefferson, where all the black people have to go, and kill them, shoot them, harass, whatever you want to do. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Yeah. So, but we got money to build a new jail. We didn't have money to build a memorial. We didn't have money to put a supermarket there. We didn't have leadership that said of the president, every leader of this country came to Buffalo.
Yeah.
The governor could have said, "I'll give the fattest tax break in history to any chain that brings their store here."
Yeah.
Didn't do it. We didn't demand it. Leadership didn't. We talked about it, but nobody listened. But we have money. Listen, thinking your money tells where you spend your money tells what you care about.
Everything.
Right.
Show me your budget. I tell you your priorities.
Right. So their priorities have never been our community.
Yeah.
It's time for that to change. That's what we're talking about. If everybody else is taking care, all right, now at least take care of us now. Yeah. The entire city is pristine almost, except where our community is.
Yeah.
Why is that? But you got money for a jail. Yeah. You got money for a stadium. I mean, I just don't. I want the people to listen to this. This is not just racial and economic. This is just what are we about in this life, in this community? I like being in the top 10, right? Like, I don't have to be number one, but I never want to be in the top 10 in the most segregated city.
And you are.
Yes. I said I don't want to be, but
I don't want to.
The poverty stricken.
Yep.
The most illiterate. Those numbers we could reverse if you take the numbers and reverse them from where you're putting it and putting it back in the community where we can get the help that
the
we
blood
need.
lead rate in our youth is higher than Flint.
Yes.
It's higher than like the
and they
lead
didn't do anything about the lead. They had money for the lead.
Yeah.
I was part of a team that was helping do an abatement. It just disappeared.
Yeah. So the investment is just not there.
It's
and we
abysmal.
know from even the report Dr. Taylor released a few years ago, especially when you look at the east side, there has been no investment whatsoever.
Listen, that man demonstrated that for the last 40 years, where our communities have not gone further. We have regressed, not progressed. Because if you use a dollar amount, what we get now is slave money.
Yeah.
So and this is why I'm asking my community, and I'm not just talking about black and brown people, because they don't care about poor people either.
Yep.
Of whatever color you call yourself.
Yep.
I'm asking my people, man, to stop letting them just disrespect us the way they have economically. We deserve to be treated better. Our community deserves to be resourced. They know public safety stems from the communities with the best resources. Why they don't got crime like they got on the east side in Clarence? Everybody in Clarence is getting a decent wage. They got their own homes. They don't have to steal a TV because they got TVs in every room that they already paid for. But when you don't have anything, Aristotle said, and this is one of y'all people, so that stole from us. Aristotle said, the parent to both crime and rebellion is poverty. You want to end crime, you want to make better public safety, end the poverty in our community, and you will have the safest community like you got everywhere else around here.
And that's the conversation that we hear a lot. You know, there are these like YouTube videos where somebody's like, I'm going to show you the worst part of Buffalo. And it's always the east side or poor communities. It's always, you know, South Buffalo near plants or train tracks. You know, it's always the parts of the community that have the obvious least investment, where the people are making the least amount of money, if any money. So I want you to just kind of reiterate a little bit the point that you're making about poverty being a symptom of crime. Like crime happens because of poverty. And I think a lot of people, especially people who don't live in these kinds of communities, they think that, you know, on the east side, they're just bad. On the east side, they're just, wow, they don't care. And that's not the case.
You know why they think that? Do you know the most racist phrase in the American lexicon is?
What?
Black on black crime.
It does not exist.
Well, it doesn't. It exists for everybody. Let me tell you something. At the height of the mafias killing each other in the 20s, 30s, gunning people down from on side of gun drive-bys that we were animals for that they were doing, you never heard Italian on Italian crime. You don't hear Spanish. And the Asian communities, we know what go on. They know what go on. You never heard of Asian on Asian. Why do they do that? Why is it black on black? Because the subliminal message to everybody is they will kill and rob their own, maim their own. They're just like animals.
They're
only animals
violent.
Right. Their DNA is programmed to. But you know what? The face of crime is us. But if you look at the statistics, Black America ain't the face of crime.
Yeah.
It is not us. But that's what they tell you. This economy here, we didn't try to trickle down. What happened? Let's try to trickle up.
Yeah.
Let's try to trickle up. Why don't we start from the bottom? Because listen, you know what's dumb to me? Because I know it's racist. Because listen, if you made the bottom part healthy, it's feeding you. If I got more money to spend, I don't have no business. I'm going to spend it in your business.
Right.
Which means you're going to make more money. Because it ain't about money. It's about oppression, control. That's what it's about. Yeah. They don't care about, they're going to make their money regardless. Because they control how it flows. But they want you to be oppressed.
Yeah. Because
there's no reason why we don't have in our community on the east side more than one grocery store. And please stop calling it food deserts.
Yeah, it's apartheid.
It's apartheid. A desert is a naturally ecological occurring event. Yeah. These are strategic, planned decimations of our community.
That's right.
That's apartheid. That's not desert.
It's not a desert.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So if we were to actually address poverty and meet people's basic needs, a new jail wouldn't even be a conversation. We wouldn't even
wouldn't need it.
You wouldn't even be sitting here today.
Yeah, that's right.
You would be working yourself right out of a job.
Which is the goal.
Exactly.
Which is the goal, right?
and that is the goal. And let me tell you, so I know there's corrections people listening, they're going to say, we just radical, we hate that. I don't want you to have a job. I want you to have a better job. That ain't even a job fit for you.
Yeah.
Oppressing somebody, watching somebody's private, all that stuff that you have to do, which I understand you got to put food on your table, but there are better jobs. There are better jobs. You should not have to settle for that to get a decent wage. See, you're going to get a decent wage. We can't even get a decent wage in our community. But you're going to get a decent wage doing that at what cost? Do you know they have the number correction officers, suicide, alcohol, assault, abuse of domestic violence. Drugs. They had those are the highest because when you in an environment like that, that's what it gets you to where it promotes. So we doing a disservice. They try to say, "Oh, we about the officers." No, you ain't about the officers. Because if you were, you would be ameliorating the concerns that they have, so that they wouldn't be killing themselves, beating their wife, and all the rest of the stuff that's going on. That you know that's going on.
Yeah. And we will be right back on What's Next on WBFO.
Did you know that WNED PBS is always working on great new local shows for you to watch? Documentaries like Kleinhand's Gift to Buffalo, which tells the story of Buffalo's music hall.
The hall is very intimate, and that intimacy makes everyone who comes in here feel a part of our family.
Fun and educational series like Compact Science.
Believe it or not, peppers are technically fruits.
And Shakespeare's greatest hits featuring some of his best-known soliloquies and monologues.
We are such stuff as dreams are made of.
You can watch them all on our website at WNED.org/local shows. While you're there, check out the show pages and mini websites for additional content such as bonus features, photo galleries, and lesson plans. Find it all at WNED.org/local shows.
Discover more with Buffalo Toronto Public Media. From riveting documentaries and live classical music to trusted local news and kids shows, Public Media brings you what matters most. This is Public Media.
From the fringes of the mainstream to the local music you love, listen to WBFO The Bridge Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to midnight on WBFO 88.7 or your smart speaker.
Buffalo Toronto Public Media is glowing with accolades in 2024. The Webbies, Tellies, GLAAD Awards, and the New York Emmys recognize the brilliance in originals like Brave Spaces, sharing LGBTQ plus stories of triumph, Compact History, exploring the history that surrounds us, and Let's Go, bringing adventure to young, curious learners. Experience them all at WNED.org or on the BTPM YouTube channel.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
All right, welcome back to What's Next on WBFO. This is your host, Jillian Hanesworth. I'm joined with Phylicia Brown, the director of No New Jail, and Jerome Wright, who is the co-director of the HALT Solitary confinement campaign. So before we move on, I do want to give one last chance to address any outline thoughts around No New Jail or around our jailing system in general. So, Jerome, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. One of the reasons why I was so adamantly opposed to the new jail, having been in there and worked in there, is I ran a campaign myself, and it was to stop solitary confinement. And we had a law passed in 2021, and it'll be 2025 in, I don't know, a week or so. Mm-hmm. And these facilities still have not implemented the law. Yeah. So right now, the law gives so many different things to people who are given disciplinary sanctions, and they refuse to honor the law. Now, they're not alone in this. I don't want to make it just about Erie County Jail, because we have problems with state facilities as well following the law. But I just want to remind people, these are the law, people supposed to be enforcing the law, and they won't follow the law that they supposed to be enforcing with HALT. And what happened while I was working in there were a lot of guys who felt really angry that they're in there for breaking the breaking the law, and they know there's a law in the books that should keep them from being in the situation they're in, and they're not following it. So that is beyond hypocritical. I couldn't tell you some of the things they said, because this is a PG radio station. We ain't cable. But I'm telling you, people are really angry that we have a law that we fought a dozen years to get passed. Yeah. And you just surreptitiously decide, because it doesn't meet your needs or what you want to do, that you're not going to do it. And these are the people we want to hand over $800 million to run a jail with. And that's why it was such an important measure for me. And it's not over. Is HALT not over? And that's the caveat for our campaign too. Just because you won the first round don't mean the battle is over. Right. And we are prepared, like we were and are with HALT, to fight until none of their lies exist, and that they follow what the people decided with their legal fights. So that's what's wrong with the jail now. They still feel they have too much autonomy to do whatever they want, to whoever they want, whenever. That's why we got deaths over there, neglect, and nothing changes. We change sheriffs, but the numbers are commensurate with what was happening here during the tenure of the guy before him. Yeah. So where's the real progression? Where's the change? It's not meant to change. It's meant to continue doing what it's doing. And so we need to not just fix the jails that are here. We need to fix the culture that these jails are running under, that's causing all of these problems for our community members. And we need those beds for mental health. I was in there. You have people who are, really sick and need help. And all they get is harassment, putting themselves naked, not so they don't harm themselves, so to say. They're treated, no way that you say that you care about somebody's mental well-being would you treat somebody with a mental illness the way it's being treated in there. That's how I know they're ill-equipped to handle that in a jail setting. And putting a mental facility on jail grounds is still jail. Yeah, it's still jail.
Yeah. You talked about the people and you both mentioned community so many times. Phylicia, when you first started talking, you talked about how this is a grassroots campaign. Yeah. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with the term, what exactly does grassroots mean?
Yeah, grassroots is about the power of the people, right? It is about all of us coming together in whatever way possible, bringing all the bricks we have to a fight or to a vision for something in order to build the thing we want or tear down the thing we don't want, right? And ideally, these are campaign and this is work that happens in conjunction with the folks who we elect, right, to be our representatives. But most often it doesn't happen that way. But we have to always hold true that we elected those folks, right? These are people who work for us. Right. And so it is our duty to take them to task when they're doing something that we know is detrimental to our community. It is our duty to show up and say, this is our vision for what this thing could look like. And you got to help move that vision forward. Right. And it is our duty to hold them accountable. And so, yeah, that's basically what grassroots means, right? Getting all the folks together to do a thing, especially people who are the most directly impacted by an issue, to come together and really be able to move the work forward.
Can I add a little something to that? Of course. For me, grassroots means you can't see the grass if you don't have no roots, right? So you can't build a safe, strong, vibrant community unless the roots are solid. And roots mean the people who are born and bred in the community who know what the issues are. This phrase, people closest to the issues have the answers, not just a trite saying, it is a fact.
That's right.
And so the roots know what the issues are, and they can help grow the grass that's going to be the community. So it's beautiful. So it looks like that Kentucky bluegrass and not the dirt that it looks like on Jefferson or Fillmore. Those are the people who are down in the dirt together. Mm-hmm. And because it's a dirty game that they're playing, because we got electeds who are celebrities now. Yeah. All the way to the top. It's celebrity status. It's not about I work for you. It's I'm the celebrity and you come to me. That's not how it's supposed to work. We forget about the vote. We forget about the vote. And I never was a proponent. I grew up believing it doesn't matter and all this until I learned that not that just people died for it. Why would they want to stop us from having the right if it didn't mean nothing?
It didn't mean anything.
People you don't rob an empty bank.
Right.
Right? So if you taking something from somebody, it has value to you, even if it doesn't have value to them yet. They don't understand it. And that's where we at now. Our communities have value for us, and we want them resourced. And I swear by God, in this holy community, we are not going to be unresourced come 2025. We're going to be alive like the rest of the world because we're starting with this jail and we're not ending there. Our people suffered in this community long enough without resources. Yeah. The resources is there. You showed your hand. You shouldn't have did that. You can come up with $200 million in the blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. Then you need to come up with some money for this community now.
Yeah. So if you could leave the listeners with a short call to action, whether it's directly related to the campaign or if it's directly related to getting involved and making sure that you fight for the community that you want to live in, what would you say?
Yeah. This phrase, which is true, right? That the people closest to the issues are closest to the solutions and know what the solutions are is 100% true. There are many things in our community that need to change. We know because we talk about them to each other all the time, right? You sit around your dinner table potentially and talk about them. You talk about them to your friends on the phone. You talk about it on TikTok. You talk about it on Instagram, right? We know what needs to change in our communities. There is a fight for whatever you want to change. There's a fight that exists for it. So join that fight, right? And then I think specifically about our work in the No New Jail campaign, it is not over because we do want investments. Investments were a key point about this campaign and for our demands. And so folks can tap in. We are setting strategy for moving forward, and we will not do that without the people. And so folks can join the campaign at bit.ly/join NNJEC, all caps. And yeah, come strategize with us and help us continue to move this work forward.
They got this popular phrase now: see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
See something, do something.
Yeah.
We're changing that. We ain't just talking about it no more. See something, do something. When we fight, we win.
Mm-hmm.
I've been part of so many things that they said was not going to happen, was impossible, including this campaign. And look at me now.
Yeah. Look at you now. Well, I'm very proud of the work that you're both doing and grateful being from the communities that are the most impacted. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope to have you both back to keep this conversation going in the future. Thank you for listening. This is What's Next on WBFO. I'm your host, Jillian Hanesworth, and we were joined by Phylicia Brown and Jerome Wright of the No New Jail campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do something.
Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.